Hi, everybody. Here comes the good stuff. This is really why we love the roller. We're going to be doing some massage on the roller for about the next 15 to 20 minutes. We're using our roller as a way to release some muscle. So just kind of a heads up. I have what's called a therapeutic roller. This green or blue is from optp.com. So it has a little bit of squish. If you have those black rollers, those don't have a lot of squish. And so we might want to pull some weight off throughout some of our massaging. If you have the white roller, it has a lot of squish. So you might have to find that you're actually pushing some weight into the roller in order to get some of this release. So just be careful, listen to your body, making some changes where it makes sense. We're going to start with a little bit of back release. And if you've ever done rolling with me, I promise we're going to come back and do some back massage as well. But right now, we're going to start with trying to get a little bit unstuck through that back. Now, just a heads up for anybody who has a hoodie on, or you have long hair, or maybe you're wearing a necklace, you want to gather all of that it's going to eventually get caught underneath that roller and kind of give you the tug that you don't want. So I'm leaning back for me just below my shoulder blades. And my hands are going to come back to support my head. So I'm really resting my head in my hands. You might negotiate this where it feels best. So mine is at the base of my shoulder blades. I'm very short waisted. If you're longer waisted, you might end up with a roller a little bit different area. We have our tailbone on and our feet are on. And we're going to start just by rocking elbows side to side. And this is going to really release some of that mid-thoracic area. If you are stuck in a computer a lot, if you have that forward head, or even, I always say this about folks who are walking through the world, if you're a really tall person, your head tends to be forward, and this can create a lot of tension in this space. Now, often I tell you, pain is a good indication that something needs to change. Discomfort here when we're rolling, we continue to rock side by side. We might run into some really sore spots, and more than likely they're trigger points. And what is a bit counterintuitive is that we stay on those trigger points. So it's a little different advice than I often give. Pain means you need to change something up here. Discomfort or a little bit of pain might indicate that it'd be better to stay on it for a few breaths if you can tolerate it. We're going to work our way up. So I'm just going to slide to my middle shoulder blade area. And instead of this kind of lateral rocking side to side, I'm going to rock as if I could roll to my underarm. Now, careful here because there's typically a lot of sore stuff. And it's good stuff to release, but often it's quite sore. And this may be that space we were talking about, especially if you're on a black roller, where you don't necessarily rock side to side, meaning looking right and left. Maybe you're doing a little bit more rolling over to it and giving a good wiggle up and down, think head to toe. So we may want to make some adjustments for how hard your roller is. You can always lay a blanket across that roller too to make it a little bit softer. The last one that's going to feel maybe not so much like a massage, we're going to go ahead, close your elbows down. I'm coming almost to the top of my shoulders. And I'm actually going to lift my hips so I can create some weight in the tops of those shoulders. And I'm just going to bend my knees so I rock a little forward and back, or head to toe. I'll try to use right and left and head to toe to be a little bit more specific. So I'm very top of shoulder blades, rocking head to toe. And you'll notice I'm not going very far, maybe 2-3 inches, but man, this is fairly intense. Hips lifted, rocking and rolling that area. When you're ready, we're going to come back down to buns. We're going to take that roller and we're going to bring it underneath us. So we're going to sit on it. For this first round, I want you to think about your tailbone. So tailbone is forward, meaning it's closer to your feet versus on the back side of that roller. So I almost have a bit of a scoop here. I'm going to drop my knees to one side. I'm going to reach behind me. And I'm just going to rock across that glute. And it's hard to see here, but I'm kind of moving up and down. So I might start a little bit closer to my waistband while I'm rocking and move my way down to what feels like more bony area, that sits bones. You might also encounter your greater trochanter, which is right out here. a bony part of your hip structure. We're just rocking across it. So this is going to be more intense. This is called shearing the muscle versus gliding. We're going to glide it here in just a second. We saved kind of the nice one for the second part. We do the tough one first. So gliding now, I'm just going to roll up and down. I use my hands or bend my knees to roll up and down that butt cheek. And you can think of gliding and shearing. I often use, like, if you're going to sand with the grain of wood versus across the grain of wood. You may notice some interesting stuff here. I always call it interesting. Sometimes it feels like there's a speed bump in your bun cheek. We're going to switch sides. So we're going to roll over now. We start with that rocking motion, rocking right to left. And we maybe start at the waistband and work our way down that bun cheek and work our way back up. It might take a moment here just to notice how's one side feel compared to the other. PTs will tell you we just simply have one side that is more sensitive than the other. You might notice more sensation on one side. It could also be because we have an injury or we're compensating for. We're going to start to glide. So we're going to roll from head to toe here, top to bottom. The side that is your dominant side often might be more sore just because of the use of that side compared to the other. When you're ready, we're going to come back through center, and this time we're going to come up to sit. So our tailbone is on the back side of our roller, and I really feel this roller pressing into the very back of the top of my 3 hamstrings. So it's connective tissue here. And we're going to start with gliding. That way you can tap out of shearing if you choose on the hamstrings. Now this one can be tricky. It kind of requires some longer arms, and we want to use our abs. We're going to lean back into those hands, and I'm just going to start to push forward and back, and I'm using my abs to help me do that. I draw my abs in as I pull back. So we're running over 3 muscles each side of those hamstrings and the connective tissue tendons associated with that, and connective tissue surrounding it and interwoven through it. Now, the one that you may tap out of is when we shear. And there's a point where the weight of your upper body just pulls you over and we give into that. We're not trying to stop that from happening. I'm back to the very top of my hamstrings, tailbone on the other side, on the back side of that roller. And I'm going to start to rock from side to side. And this is where you might start to feel some of those speed bumps or things that feel like, oh my goodness, it was really hard, or it feels really interesting. You can go back to gliding if it's so uncomfortable that that makes better sense for you. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm rocking, 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 and then just inching down, getting that roller closer to the back of my knees. I'm leaning forward to give myself a little bit of counterbalance. You can hang out on hands if hands allow as you continue to rock and roll. So we're rocking from left to right down those hamstrings. At some point, the weight of your bottom is going to pull you over, and then you just start again. We'll do this a couple of times. Inching your way down. You'll typically notice one side is a little bit more tender than the other. For sure, my right hamstring is more, right set of hamstrings, much more tender. Go to where you can, either gliding or shearing. And at some point, the weight of your booty is going to pull you over. Sliding your roller now to the base of your calf. So I don't have any calf definition, but if I did, I've got this big, thick calf muscle. I'm going to start at the bottom of it. So I'm going to lean back, come back onto my mat here. I'm going to lean back, and starting at the bottom, I get a little bit of windshield wiper going, or I can do my gliding. So shearing from side to side or gliding from top to bottom. You might not have much sensation here. For me, my calves are often, because of hypermobile knees, like the sorest part of my body. So you're going to see some bad scrunchy faces. Just like when we were inching down the hamstrings, we're inching up the calf. So I do a little bit of windshield wiper, I do a little bit of gliding, and I inch my way up. Do what's tolerable. Lift some weight off if it's not tolerable. Got a couple more inching ups to go. Keep that windshield wiper gliding going. Now, it tends for me, it tends to be the higher I get, the more thunking I get. Definitely tight connective tissue. This and inner thigh is probably my least favorite part to roll, but also means I probably need to be rolling it every day. So I'm at the very top of my calves now. And doing, again, what makes sense, gliding or shearing. And we're going to do just a little bit of a rinse here. So we're going to take it down to our starting point. Actually, let's start at the top, I should say. So we're taking it to the just below the back of the knees, and we're going to rock and roll the whole calf. And you can do that in any way that makes sense. All right, let's do the front of our legs. So we're going to switch to a kneeling position. Now, this next one, awesome for shin splints. Also, if you have shin splints, can be quite tender. So you can skip this one fully. We're going to roll the shins. I'm going to come on up into kneeling, and I put my toes on for some stability. And there's a couple of ways you can think about this. So I like to almost go back into what looks like a child's pose to roll my shins. You might come up into tabletop and do a little bit more abs to roll shins. So doing what's tolerable. Could be inside my head right now. Oh man, these are really tight. Couple more. And then we're gonna pause. We're gonna come to lay on our roller. So my roller is gonna be right on my hip bones across the pelvis. So it makes my tailbone go up in the air, right? My booty's in the air. So this next one, we're gonna try 3 different leg positions. And this is gonna roll our quads. We're gonna roll out to about mid-thigh, and I'm gonna bring my elbows on. Because we're not in Pilates, I'm not so worried about if your back is arching. If you are working to protect the back, you can tuck your tailbone and draw your belly in. We're gonna start to rock and roll here. So I'm really trying to get from the crease of my thighs to mid-thigh, and I'm going to show you a little technique that can get you a little bit lower. Careful if you have knee stuff. You can come up onto your palms and start to roll that whole quad all the way down to the knee, because the fun stuff happens down at the knees. You can also, as you're drawing in on elbows, send your tailbone up towards the ceiling to get down towards knees. And I told you we're going to do 3 feet positions. Turning your toes out, we start to roll. Now, this is going to get a little more inner thigh. We have 4 quads. So it's going to get that inside 1 or 2 quads. And when I say this, we're just envisioning, this is not how our quads work. They're really interwoven, of course, working together as one unit. This one can be quite challenging because we are getting some of that inner thigh. Take your toes now and turn them inward. So you see me making a few adjustments. I'm lifting. I'm going to turn my toes inward. That's going to roll a little bit more of the outside down by the knee as well. This may be one where you get really sweaty for not moving a whole lot. That's because we're releasing a lot of heat up really probably quite chronically tight areas of the body. Back to toes just pointing down. We're going to give it a good rinse, moving through that entire quad. If we can get down towards those knees. Awesome. Whew. All right. Here comes the IT band. Resting on one side. And I'm going to be tapping out of a lot of this side because I'm still working with a little bit of hip bursitis. So I'm going to demonstrate this and then I'm going to hop off. Bottom leg goes long. So bottom leg goes long. Top leg comes up and over. And this is where you have a lot of control. You can press through the sole of your foot and the hand to lift weight off. Now you might start in the really fleshy, more pleasant part, which is hip bone area. You might start to walk then down that IT band. And if you could see me, I barely have my leg resting here because of that hip bursitis. But we're rolling back and forth, pushing some weight off with hands, pushing some weight off with feet. You're going to continue to roll. I'm going to protect this by coming off. I'll give you a few more rolls. Again, that fleshy part, a little kinder, rolling that IT band, tight, and often pretty tough to tolerate. You can spend as much time on this side as you like. We're going to switch sides. You'll notice here too, you're going to have one side that feels probably a little more sensitive than the other side. So we're going to hop on. Bottom leg stretches. So the hip that's connected is your bottom leg. Top leg comes up and over. Again, we're going to use those hands maybe in the fleshier part of that hip structure or to roll down that IT band. Pushing weight through the leg and arms. You might get all the way down to that knee. Oops, here comes my mat with me. Anybody feeling that, right? Everybody's feeling that. When you're ready, we're going to roll. So we're coming with that roller behind our back. So we land bottom on. This is really the reason we do the roller. This is the good stuff for that low back and really for the whole back. So coming back to this idea of the base of your shoulder blades, gather anything that might be hanging over that roller, including your hair in a ponytail. We're going to support the head with the elbows wide. I'm going to lift my hips and I start rolling from the bottom of my shoulder blades up to the top of my shoulder blades, or I might even roll up into the neck, which is going to create a bigger bend through my knees. So more pleasant than when we began, where we were shearing. Now we're gliding. Close your elbows down like you're hugging your head with your elbows. That's going to get a little bit more into our rhomboids. I don't recommend really rolling that low back. You can, and certainly if it works for you, go for it. For most of us, it creates so much tension, it doesn't really feel like it's relieving tension. So you get to judge for yourself how that might feel. When you're ready, we're going to let that roller land behind the head. And as it lands behind the head, we're going to pick a side to roll over to. So rolling over to one side, I think about the very base of my skull. So one of the still points, and I'm really resting the roller on that space. I'm just going to start to make some circles. So I'm rolling across that space. I'm circling in one direction and circling the other. We're going to release neck and jaw here. And then just pause to let the weight of your head rest on that spot. And then we're going to roll to the joint of your jaw. So think about maybe if you trace a line out from your eye, maybe it's about 1 inch down from that eye. And we do the same thing. We're going to circle around that jaw. And then reverse your circle. Yes, it looks awkward. It is awkward, but it's a good release. Pause there, let the weight of your head rest right there where your jaw hinge is located. And then we're going to move up to just around the temple. So we rest just outside of that eye on the bony sort of cheekbone area. And we do that same circling. So we're going to circle right around that temple area. And then reverse your circle. And pause. Let some weight rest. Move that roller to your jaw. Give it a good little roll. Maybe you're rocking side to side. Move that roller to the back of your skull. That same kind of idea. Maybe a little shake of the head, no. And for you, you're going to roll over to the other side. So you're going to end up rolling away from the screen. I'm just going to flip around to the other side so you can still see where I'm headed. It goes to the other side of your skull now, that base part of your skull. And we do those same circles. So circling in one direction, and then circling in the other. Think about that hinge of your jaw, resting that. Believe it or not, so much of our neck tension can come from this jaw. If you're like me, your second round of braces, mouth not aligned, lots or jaw bones not aligned, lots can come from that jaw space. We'll move it up to the temple. Same circling one direction and then the other. And then just pause to rest some weight on the temple. Glide it down, rest some weight on the jaw. Roll it back to the base of the skull, rest some weight there. And then we're going to roll to our backs. The spinal release of the neck and shoulders. We've got that roller right at the base of our skull, and we're just going to very gently rock our head from side to side, ear to ear. And we go pretty slow, so we can notice if we need to pause and rest on any of those sore spots. And then as we come back through center, you might even glide it up just a little bit behind the very back of the skull and nod your head yes and no. When you're ready, we're going to slide that roller out, letting your head rest. Now, if it's okay, I'd love for you to keep your knees bent, feet wide. So feet are on, knees bent, and knees drop towards each other. And for now, gaze towards the ceiling and arms comfortable. So this nice neutral space. We've rolled through lots of things. We've hopefully released lots of things. We have an opportunity for you to rest here as long as you choose in this space of hopefully more ease through that entire body. Rest there as long as you like. I'll see you guys next time. Be well.